For years, his name has been etched in stone outside the Centralia, Washington Library.
There he is, right there.
It's a memorial dedicated to prisoners of war and those missing in action.
Right here. George F. Bishop.
George Bishop was a prisoner of war. To Stan and Les Yoakum, George is their uncle, a man they've never met, but one they're learning more about. Bishop enlisted in the Army in 1939 and was stationed in the Philippines in 1941. George died during World War II before either of them was born.
It says, to Shirley, from George.
Shirley is their mom, George's little sister. This is possibly his last letter home, a Christmas card sent with a Filipino doll.
Best wishes for Christmas and happiness in the new year.
Sergeant Bishop's new year would be anything but happy. The day after the Pearl Harbor attack in December of 1941, the Japanese attacked the base Bishop was stationed at. For 3 months, American and Filipino troops fought back before surrendering. Thousands of soldiers, including Bishop, would become a prisoner of war.
He survived the battle and was marched in that Bataan Death March.
The Bataan Death March was a grueling and deadly 65-mile march through the Philippines to the POW camps. Thousands of soldiers died along the way due to the harsh conditions of the jungle and by the hands of the Japanese troops. Bishop survived the march, but at only 22 years of age, he died at a POW camp in July of 1942.
And the fact that he took part in that kind of stuff, it just blows me away.
Bishop was buried among many others in a mass grave, what was known as Common Grave 215. When the war ended, the bodies in the mass grave were moved to a cemetery in Manila to either be buried there or identified and sent home. Bishop's remains would be among the many without a name, only known as X2875. In 1949, a recommendation was made to identify those remains as George Bishop, but that was denied, citing fragmented forensic evidence and poor dental records. The Army wrote to his parents telling them, "The Department of the Army has been forced to determine that his remains are not recoverable." Everything would change more than 80 years after his death when Stan got an email
Saying, hey, we found your uncle. Good news.
You see, years ago, Stan and other family had donated their DNA, which the government used to help identify George Bishop. X2875 finally had a name.
It touched my heart, let me put it that way.
For years, his name would be among those on the wall of the missing in that Manila cemetery. You see that little spot to the left of his name? It's a rosette. It was put there recently to symbolize that his remains have been identified and sent back home.
That was the big thing, was that he'd been identified. He was real.
And after more than 8 decades, he will finally come home.
This is the spot right here.
A spot of his own next to family.
This is George's spot right here.
All right, so around 1 p.m. today at PDX, an American Airlines flight from Dallas will land with Sergeant Bishop's remains. Then on Thursday, he'll be buried at the Clequedo Cemetery up in Chehalis, where he'll receive full military honors as he's laid to rest.